All right, hey GovCon Giants family out there. How's everyone doing this evening? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I just jumped off a podcast with my guest, Rebecca. Where is she at? Where did I grab her information? Either way, Rebecca is in charge. She's the co-founder and creator of VIB Network. And Rebecca is having a conference in October. So for all you veterans out there, her organization is free to join. Free. Costs you no money. If you're a veteran, her organization is absolutely free to join. So take a look at that organization, VIB Network. Free to join. They have a upcoming conference scheduled on October the 12th and 13th. And the thing is, you have to register by Friday in order to receive a, what does she call it? A challenge coin. So just wanted to put that out there first and foremost, because I know we've got a lot of veterans here. So definitely want to put that out there. What's up? What's up? How's everybody? Queen of Zion. What's up, Tam? Colin? Maurice, ready to learn more? Um, One of the things that I will say is I had a call today with one of my students, and she says, Eric, I'm so busy trying to keep up with you on YouTube and on Instagram and on the course and all this stuff. Look, please you don't have to keep up with me. I tell everyone, don't try to keep up with me. Just because I'm putting out a bunch of content doesn't mean that you have to be everywhere all the time. So look, don't try to keep up with me. There's there's the same set of principles, same set of activities that we all should be out here doing. And it's just for me, these are topics that I know people are always interested in, people are always asking about, and so that's why I said, okay, let me kind of touch on this stuff and create content around it because folks ask these questions all the time. By the way, a reminder, I don't necessarily come on here to do learning sessions. I really come on here to share information. This is more of a Q&A type session for you. Uh, I made it to discuss proposal writing just because it seems like if I don't have a topic, people typically ask just random questions. So I wanted to start making it topic centric so that the questions would be all, they would all revolve around the same subject matter expert. If there's anyone out there who's having trouble with writing proposals, that seems to be an area where a lot of folks have trouble at. Let me know. Ask a question, and I will answer the question to the best of my ability. So don't feel like, it's just me coming on here just dumping information on folks. I definitely want to train. I want to teach. I want you to learn. But at the same token, I want you to be able to ask questions as you wish. So is there anyone out here who's put together a proposal recently, who've had challenges, who've had troubles, that they have something specific they want me to talk about or ask? Let me know. Oh, you applied for the Low Small Business Grant. Good job. I like it. Respond to deal date solicitation 5 pages is hard. I wish, Tam, you would have sent that, and I know it's kind of after the fact. I wish you had sent it so we can look at it. I did happen to pull down something that I worked on recently with Maria, and that's kind of what I'm going to share today. Is that particular proposal? Let me see if I got it here. This is the one that I'm going to talk about today in today's chat. It did not come from DOD, but this came from, who did this come from, Maria? This was from, I think it was Department of Interior. Oh, no, Fish and Wildlife Services. That's where it was. Fish and Wildlife Services. So we're going to talk about this particular proposal that Maria and I put it together. And that's the one I'm going to use for today's subject matter. And, we'll go from there. Oh, she said it's due tomorrow. Tam, I would have loved to had a chance to look it over and discuss on tonight's episode. It would have been a great real life example illustration, but maybe with going over the one that we've talking about, this will help you answer some of the questions out there. Demetrius, I hired Lalani as my consultant to handle my proposal writing. Hey, that's always a good thing too. Look, if you can afford it, just hire someone. So that's good. But yeah, no, Demetrius, that's a good call. But for those folks who Greetings, Toronto. What's up, Toronto? Wolfman. I didn't even say hi to my folks out here. Let me see who's out here. Johnny Spiva, what's up? Mr. J. Sheen, I see you. I don't know how to say your name. Maria79, I'm going to say your last name. Tam says, I can send it to you. It's due tomorrow. Well, hopefully, Tam, we can, again, I will tell you something. I actually kind of enjoy writing proposals now. It's like a weird fetish, I guess you would say. But yeah, I actually enjoy it. So, like I tell you, I just put my headsets on, put on a hoodie, listen to some music, and I just crank these things out. In fact, Maria's infamous for giving it to me. She says she gets it to me in advance, but it's kind of like last minute to me. So, yep, definitely. I'm going to use this as an example. But if you have questions, if there's something specific that you want to ask about, please put it in the chat. Definitely, it creates a more engaging conversation. I like dialogue back and forth. There's, for me, you know, I like this. This is a very good. Someone says, I just started. I keep getting hoodwinked by these private websites that look like government sites. I like that. Thank you for that comment. Yeah, there's so many people out here. Okay, let's talk about something before we even get into proposals. Yeah, there are so much. Oh, I didn't even know I was blurry. Hold on, let me fix my thing. Okay, no one told me I was blurry. Y'all, I thought y'all liked me. Y'all didn't even tell me. All right. But yeah, there's so many people out here just, again, what is Brian's word? I don't know, like, charlatans. He calls them charlatans. We call them shysters from our neighborhood. There's so many people out here that are just taking advantage of folks. And Elusive Me, but your name was Elusive Me, so you shouldn't even feel bad. The thing is, I try to tell people, because people come to me and they give me these wonderful ideas of what they're working on, and I say, I didn't teach you that, so you didn't learn that from me. So don't. It's so often that people come to me and say, Eric, how do I do this? I heard this other person say this. How do I do this? I go, ask that person. So that whoever is giving your information, that you're taking information from, don't come back to me and ask me how to do some scheme that this person taught y'all, because I don't know how to do those things. So if you heard about some guy doing this thing this kind of way, and then you come to me and like, Eric, well, this guy said he did this. How do you do that? I don't know. Ask that person. It's appalling to me how we could go out there. We're getting information from 4 or 5 different places, maybe 6 or 7 different places, and then you're trying to put it all together and figure out what sticks. And really, that's where I think a lot of people get confused, is just your sources. And I have this conversation every day with folks. I've had it 3 times today on calls. Look, the difference between me and everybody else, I'm actually doing contracts. I do real contracts. I do big contracts. I don't sell pens to the government. I don't sell freaking clips, for 10 cents. I'm not trying to make, 1 penny per deal, or I'm not trying to make $100 off of a TV or something like that. I'm not doing this to buy a car or to buy, to upgrade my house or nothing like that. We do real contracts that create opportunities, jobs for people, and employ people, that you can actually build a business that is sellable, that will actually pay you dividends, pay you returns, that you could grow and be proud of, you could pass along to your family, legacy business, right? Stuff like that. So that's what separates me from everybody else out there. And I think, again, a lot of people are looking for that quick fix, that quick hit, that quick, get rich quick type scheme, and it just doesn't exist. Like, it's not real. Unfortunately, it's not real. It's a lot of work. Ask Demetrius. Demetrius, how long have you been at this? Okay. Colin, how long have you been at this? There's people in here. Muhammad, how long have you been at this? There's people in this chat that I know of that, again, they can tell you that this thing takes work. It takes time, dedication, takes a commitment, and it doesn't matter how much money you pay someone. They can't walk you through the doors. Like, it just doesn't matter. Again, I always remind people, if that was the case, small businesses, minority business, black and brown people, people with less relationships, connections, money, we'd never have a chance if that was the case. If it was only about money, right, we would never have an opportunity. And I think that a lot of times we know this stuff, but we don't put it to practice. Like we still think like, nah, man, I'm gonna give somebody $3,000, and they told me they can help me get me right past all the gatekeepers. And then when you go back and you look at yourself and you say, you know what? That was dumb as hell, because if it only takes you 3,000, let's say it takes you 10. If it only takes $10,000 to buy contracts, I would buy contracts all day long. I would spend every 10,000 I can get my hands on to buy $1 million contracts. I would trade 10,000 for $1 million contracts until I ran out of 10,000, which I would never run out because my $1 million contracts would make me 100. I would buy 10 contracts at a time. So again, that's the difference, and that's kind of what I want to share with people. Demetrius, about 3 years, it's a grind. If we're easy, everybody be doing it. And again, there's elusive me. They want elusive me. How did I guess 10K? I know the formula. I actually had one of my students that was hit up for 3,000 or 4, and then they asked him for 30,000 on top of that. So it's like, I hear this all the time. Colin, even if you don't bid, read the solicitation. It's a great practice. Hell, write a proposal and pass solicitation, get practice in. Excellent, good stuff. And so, like, I just want to remind people of this, because you're going to leave me today, and then tomorrow or later tonight, you're going to see somebody who promises you that you can skip through the hoops. You don't have to do any of the stuff that we talked about, and you're going to they're going to put a magic pill or something. And because you are the lucky one that has the $5,000, you're going to skip the line. There's no lucky one. There's no skipping a line. And if you don't understand this, right, again, I always say, ask the people, whoever you decide to pay money to, ask them, do they do contracts? Have them show you a contract. Have them show you a purchase, or have them show you something that is where you want to go, right? Wherever you want to go, wherever you want to be at, have that person, right, show you results of where you want to go. There is value to getting on a GSA schedule. There is again, like Colin said, there's legitimate people out here that do this. If you need a GSA schedule, but just a matter of showing me how big the market is and how many opportunities there are doesn't say if that's a fit for me. And that's the differences. I don't agree that everything is a fit for everyone. I don't agree that every certification is a fit for everyone. By the way, Demetrius, have you heard of the lady that was on my show just a minute ago? Have you ever heard of where is it at? The VIB Network? Just kind of curious if you ever heard of them. So with that said, let's talk about proposal writing. Did anyone have any questions? Anyone before we get started? I looked over solicitation, had over 1,400 pages for no Air Force Space project. What's the average number of pages? Maurice, you should know by now, there's no average number of pages on a solicitation. But let's just, since you're asking that question, let's go to the one here that we're going to look at for today's example, Maria. This one happened to be 19 pages. So this one wasn't that bad. It was 19 pages, 1, 2, 3. I think it was 4 amendments. Yep. So this one happened to be 19 pages, 4 amendments. So it wasn't that bad. And one of the things that, can we see this good on the screen? Let me check my screens. All right, we're good. By the way, Maurice, I bid something at Nellis Air Force Base. One of the things that I think that a lot of people, and I know we're talking about proposals, but I still get like a lot of questions that people ask me about actually filling out these documents. So the first thing I want to point out to folks is when you're reading this, look right here. And it says right there in the top, and I know it's hard to read, but you could still catch it, offer to complete blocks 12, 17, 23, 24, and 30. That's like people, surprisingly enough, as simple as this may seem, folks miss it. And I could see it because, again, you're focused on how many pages it is. All this stuff looks like it kind of blurs together, right? And you're like, I don't even know where to start with this thing at. Well, I can tell you the first thing that it says, and here at the top, in bold letters, is what blocks you should be completing. So don't, this hopefully will help you to be able to navigate those specific items. And it doesn't have to do with proposal writing, but it does have to do with filling out this particular request from the government. And so that I kind of want to point that out for folks out there. I'm sure someone out there was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that. So this is, hopefully that helps. Let's look at the statement of work here. This was actually, and I'm going to say this. The reason why I chose this particular one was because it was not construction. So since it was not construction, I said, let me choose something that's not construction. Hold on, let me fix my screen here. Looks like this way. Okay. All right. Let me just fix my All right. So I put something on the screen that was not construction to help people out to get a better understanding. Now, the statement of work. And what's funny, and not funny, but Maria, I'm glad Maria's on because she could tell you how something that even this small can be somewhat confusing. Here's a statement of work. They want to do a podcast series, multimedia communications project. It's for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, Alaska region. They need an expert to develop a strategy, produce 2 podcast series associated stories and episodes. Here's the background about what the podcast is about, and it tells you what podcasts are. And then it goes to some additional background, 2 of the 3 communication priorities. They want to talk about what's called Fish 150, recognizing 150 years of fisheries. And then they also want to talk about showcase the diversity of region's workforce and interview people that are actually working in Alaska. And then here's your scope of work, which you're supposed to provide, develop the podcast series, serve as the primary producer, editor, produce 50 episodes, host a kickoff meeting for the project, and then here's the technical requirements where you are demonstrating ability and experience to work in audio podcasting format, skill experience facilitating and developing communications, and then experience incorporating distinct Alaska Native perspective in communications products. And that's really where we were like, okay. For us, that was like, okay, I had to figure out how to try and tie everything that we had done before in there because, as you know, we do a podcast, GovCon Giants. So it was pretty easy to meet requirements 1 and 2 for us. But requirement number 3 was a little bit like, how are we going to do that? And then the rest of the documents, right? And this is where people kind of get caught up. The rest of the documents here is where a lot of people, I think, when they look at the sheer volume of information and the sheer number of things in there, this is like the old certs and reps stuff that we had to do before there was ever a SAM.gov. So essentially, a lot of this stuff here is just repeat information that's in every single solicitation that's put out by the government. So all of this stuff is where you have a cage code. Are you doing business with a foreign entity? Are you selling a product that's not USA made, right? Are you, what categories do you fall into? Service disabled women on HubZone, right? So a lot of this is always the same on all of your requests. Literally, it's the same. Hold on. My screen is flashing, so I don't know why. And so here, really, it's just the FAR clause that they incorporate into the language. So there's really, in the majority of cases, there's nothing to do here unless they specifically ask you to include this document. And then for the most part, they'll say somewhere in the language, or if you're registered in SAM, there's no need to fill out the certs and reps. This is before the SAM database, and it talks to you about if you're not registered, you should include, here it is, offer representation certifications. Let's go in. The offer should complete only paragraph B if you have completed annual represent certs and SAM award, etc. Okay, if you have not completed your certs electronically, then you're going to include C through U. So again, if you're already done this in SAM, you're only required to complete paragraph B. So that makes it a lot easier. So most of this stuff doesn't even count except B, which is here. Looks like this is B, right? So out of all of these other pages on here, really the only things that they're interested in is have you completed your online reps and certs in SAM? And then it says, is there anything else in that by reference? So out of all this other junk, there's nothing else applicable to you. Because I'm assuming that if you're here watching me and you're here looking at proposal writing, that you must be registered. And also if you're looking at wanting to be a prime. So let me go right into the chat real quick and just see if there's any questions before we continue moving on. Volume 1 seems to be who you are and what you do. What are your searching reps? Some have NDAs. Okay, good stuff. 2 volumes. Okay. Right, Colin, there's going to be a technical volume and a pricing volume. Okay, good. So no questions so far? We're good on that? All right, so let me go back, pull it up on the screen for folks out here. Now, what's interesting is the way that I read this, and this is where some of these things get tricky. Let me find it. Okay, I don't see it on there. This is the amendment they talked about. Make sure that you acknowledge all your amendments when you're submitting something to the government. That's really important. In your solicitation up here, there's going to be a form. There's a document that says amendments and what amendments were received, and you're going to check you're going to write down the number of amendments and the ones you received, and also you're going to include them as well. So you'll sign and date and include all your amendments. Just wanted to. I have to say these things because there are people out here that don't know that will make this mistake. So I definitely want to make sure to say it. So here, there's 1, 2, 3. I think there's 4 amendments. So you definitely want to make sure you include all the amendments. It talks about here, are you expected to train local producers? And this is just the Q&A stuff. The company is a primary producer, editor, transcriber of the podcast episodes, and are required to cover all the above. Story writing. There's no travel. That was one of my questions. It says in Alaska, most of the area are involved with travel restrictions, so there's no travel involved on here. Oh, yeah, well, dun, dun, dun. There's no distribution plan in place. Maria just told me, I want to look at the other proposal, the FAA one. It was harder. The service is on SoundCloud. So they ask, is there a follow-up requirement? Could you please provide previous contract task orders? There's a new requirement, new opportunity. People want to ask about budgets. They can't give you the budget. Contain information in PWS. Is there anything else, additional information? Nope. No audio samples. No travel. Repeat question. Web development team, how do you handle the distribution of it? So, I mean, for me, it's just generic stuff on here. This one answered, you're going to incorporate diverse cultural perspectives, whether considering balance between traditional ecological knowledge and Western science of the complexity of fisheries use management case. And then on this one, they extended the response date from the 22nd to the 30th. So really, at the end of the day, what we had to focus on was primarily addressing this particular technical requirements, demonstrating we had the ability and experience of working in this, the skills and necessary, and then incorporate the Alaska perspectives. And so I'll show you example of how we did that. All right, I'm looking at the comments. Dun, dun, dun. Maria's right. Follow instructions. Speaking of USA Made, how difficult it is to use Canadian products as a Canadian supplier. No, I just said that those are some of the requirements. That doesn't mean that every solicitation has USA Made only in it, Canadian products. It just, what it says is if the products are coming from outside of the USA, and again, you have to read the law, the requirements. It's just saying where are they coming from. Hold on, sorry. What they want to know is where the products are coming from, and also is it one of the countries in which we are not allowed to accept products. So you are allowed to use products that are not made in the USA. It just depends. Each contract is different. There's no real, you can't make the assumption or presumption that every contract means made in the USA only. There are, for example, one of our podcast guests, actually, no, she wasn't a guest. She was on my YouTube. She wasn't on my podcast. But one of our guests, they make cutlery and flatware, and the USA Made It Only provision was removed as it pertains to cutlery and flatware. So it depends on the product itself, whether or not it's required to be made in the USA. So yeah, it doesn't, I mean, Africa, whatever, as long as it's not on one of like a terrorist list or one of the countries that we're not allowed to do business with list, it just depends on the requirements. And even with made, like the Chinese made stuff that we couldn't use before. For example, I knew when I had like on my construction sites, we had screws. They would come in, if you had like screws that were made in China, they would take and just throw them in the garbage. They would have you, they would literally stop the job, tell you to go get you a pickup truck and come get all this stuff and take it off of here immediately. Or they would get a pickup truck and they would take your stuff, put it onto their pickup truck and drive it off the job site. I've seen people do an entire building where they installed they were doing some dorms on a military installation, and inside this dormitories, every single sink they found out after they had installed like 200 rooms of sinks, every sink was made in China, and the government was very specific in their solicitation requirements that they could not have that foreign-made product in here, and so they had to remove every single sink outside of that dorm. So it just depends, and you have to look at the requirements that are stipulated inside. Again, and that's why Maria says in here, read. Do not make any assumptions, good or bad. So don't make assumptions that it can't come from China. Don't make assumptions that it can come from China. Don't make assumptions that it can't come from Canada or Africa, but don't make assumptions that it cannot either. Just read it. And if if they don't spell it out, or if it's not clear, ask the question. Put your question in an RFI and ask. My biggest takeaway from today, I want everyone to get, and I really do believe this. If you can read and you can write, you can do government contracts. Because the biggest part that people, your competitors, and everyone else is going to mess up on is not reading and failing to reading or failing to respond the way that the government stipulates, which is if they say 12-point font, if they say, single line space, Times Roman, maximum 5 pages, address. So let's look at here. It says here specifically, demonstrate your billing experience in working in audio, producing podcasts, including bring your own equipment, recording, and editing to the project. If you do not write that up in your technical requirement, you're disqualified. If you do not you have to address this in the technical requirements. You have to specifically, wait, can you see this on my screen? Oh, sorry. Okay. You have to address this in your technical requirements. Skill and experience facilitating, developing creative communications, planning, marketing, communications, products, and content production. If you don't address that in your write-up, then you've wasted everyone's time. And a lot of what I want to say to folks out there is, this is time consuming. This is an investment, right? Maybe you're partnering with another team member. Maybe you're partnering with a supplier or a subcontractor. But it doesn't matter. If you're getting a price for some equipment or you're getting a price for a product, that's someone's time. At some point, as you continue to do this and you're not mindful or courteous or respectful of people's time, they're going to stop wanting to work with you and stop giving you prices and giving you numbers. So make sure you read it to the T. You understand what they're talking about. And again, if you cannot, and this is something, by the way, I tell people in the very beginning, this is what they call, like they say, go, no go checklist. Go, no go means do we bid it or do we not bid it? When you're looking at this stuff on the no go, if you cannot, right, address these things adequately, then to me, this should be a no go. If you cannot address these things adequately, then this should be a no-go. It says here, right? Develop flexible strategies. If you can't demonstrate, let's go here. It says contracts shall be awarded to best overall value to the government. So what does that mean? Not price, not necessarily experience, the best overall value. And what we have to demonstrate in our technical write-up is how it is that we are the best overall value for everyone out there. Let me just stop real quick and take some questions. I agree it's much simpler than it looks. I overcomplicate at times. Laugh out loud. Maurice, yes. Serious screws, yes. I see stuff like gym equipment shouldn't be a big deal. I can't say. Again, read it and see what the requirements are. Scott says, agencies are verifying their subs. A content officer contacted me to ask about my company's D&B profile to validate my company's creditworthiness. Has it happened to anyone else yet? Scott, I've never heard of that before. I've actually, I've never heard of a federal agency asking for about a D&B profile. Never, ever heard that. It sounds like to me I would be curious whether or not that was a federal agency or a state agency. Right now, because of COVID and because of all the scams taking place with PPE and fraudulently selling, sanitizers, masks, gloves, all this kind of stuff, more and more states have lost astronomical numbers, and I could understand wanting to vet new companies starting off at the state and local level. I have not yet seen that at the federal level at all. In fact, I would be perplexed, Scott, if you told me that was a federal agency. And if it was, then it would probably be because it's a new person in there trying to, make a name for themselves. But I really have never seen or heard of that at the federal level. They just don't have that kind of time to do that investigative research. So that sounds like to me it was a state agency or a municipality that actually did that. But you can feel free to put it in the chat who it was, so that way we can qualify and clarify. If a source of thought shows it back up and has old response date, is opportunity still available? No. No, they don't. If a source of thought has passed its expiration date, then you've missed it. That's it. But because a source of thought passed its expiration date, doesn't mean that the contract is not coming out. So you just missed the source of thought date, but the contract itself still will come out in the future. Yeah. So Scott, what I'm finding out here is that there's a lot of new people, new contracting folks out in the marketplace, and I had a contracting. She was not even a contract officer. She was a contract officer representative. I still don't believe it was a contract officer, Scott, honestly. It maybe is a contract officer representative or a contract officer technical representative, like a COTART, that did that. Even though it's a 5-year, and I don't know what LTC program means, but even though a 5-year program, unless, again, like I said, because of all the PPE scams and fraud, people are tightening their belts, right? I mean, you don't have to go far to if you can Google PPE scam or PPE fraud, how they defraud the government, and I'm sure your computer will populate with a whole bunch of this stuff. So, yep. So Maria says she copies and pastes parts of the stuff. On a go, no go. Again, if you can't deliver these items, I would call this a no-go bid if I were you. So let's go into the actual. I'm trying to flip on the screen. So let's look at what we submitted. And I don't even know if this was the final version. I hope so. But how can I'll scroll through, I'll show you a little bit about what we submitted and what it looks like, and then we could talk about it. So we first did it. So the first thing was a cover page, which I scrolled through. You saw the cover page on there. And then the next thing, we did an introduction. We went over the scope of services, our project organization, and then we addressed all of the things in the technical requirements. And what you'll see here is, hold on, guys. Give me a second. I'm going to close out some of these amendments so we could flip back and forth between the requirements and what they asked for and the actual we submitted. So what I like to do, I mean, I really do try to dummy proof this stuff. So in this technical requirements, I always like to literally write number one, right? Demonstrate ability and experience working audio producing podcasts, including equipment, right? I literally like to just put number 1 and then I explain it. And then you should see skill, experience, facilitating, developing stuff. You should see that as number 2. Let's go. Okay. You see that? All right. Number 2, and then I explain it. And then number 3, right? And then we go in and we explain number 3. And really, I like to do that because for me, you have to, if you've ever heard about what it takes to write, you have to talk to your audience and write to your audience. And it's the same way newspapers are written at like a 7th grade level. What I like to do is I don't want to leave any potential room for error, confusion, and that tends to happen a lot when folks try to be cute about it and try and, for example, like I had someone that I was helping recently on a proposal. He's like, yeah, I'm going to do the same thing, but put it in my own words. That's fine. If you were to take and put this in your own words, do you think that there's a possibility? So let's go back to it. Do you think that if you were to put this in your own words, there's a possibility that the government might mistake it for something else? And that's kind of like the concern that I have is not that you can't use your own words and rewrite it and all this kind of stuff, but why take the risk that the government or someone reading this, and by the way, something else real quick. It's not all the time that the government itself or the people that you see from the government end are reviewing these technical write-ups. There are contracts out there that the government gives to companies, third-party companies like ourselves, to review and analyze these particular offers from folks. So maybe this is going to a third-party company that's going to be doing the analysis and review on behalf of the government and coming back with a recommendation. The point is, you don't want to leave any room for ambiguity, confusion, or for them to feel or believe like you didn't address a specific issue. There's only 3 bullet points. Let's be clear. We don't have to, how do I say this? Be cute about it. We don't have to dance around it. These are the 3 things that they want to address. 1, 2, 3. I'm addressing them. Because again, I've had this happen to me before. They're like, well, and you don't want, look, if you make this hard on them, they're going to make it hard on you, as you can imagine. What if there's 1 or 2 of you out there, maybe they'll go in and try and dig and find. But what if there's 20 people that submitted on this? And they're looking at your technical write-up, and someone's going, okay, the evaluation criteria, did he address the 3 technical areas that we put in our requirements? They're looking at yours and they're trying to read in between the lines and figure out, I'm reading it, but I don't really see where he said that, or he or she said they had the skill and experiences in facilitating and demonstrating creative communications. Someone else on the other side that might be smarter and more adapt to reading technical proposals might be like, oh yeah, I see it over here. But you're making a lot of assumptions about these people are sitting together or in the same room or in the same place. If there's 3 different people that are judging this or looking at it, and this guy goes and says, you didn't address number point 2, so and they get you on a rating scale, so you automatically, if you don't hit these 3 points, you disqualify. Then you disqualify yourself by just not being explicit and stating or restating the technical requirement that you're going to be addressing in this particular follow-on page, paragraph, whatever. And I do that all the time. I have some proposals that I've written, like the one that Maurice talked about at Nellis Air Force Base, where my technical volume was, 40 pages, 50 pages. And I did this for every single requirement. I went through and listed, and it was a title. It was bold. I said, this is the question that they have in their technical write-up. This is how I address this question. This is the question. This is how I address it, and so forth and so on. Some questions on here. All right. Wolfman J. So it's a standard Q&A paper. Wolfman, there is no standard. This is one example. There is no standard. what I always like to say is, again, and this is why I'm going to go back and going to repeat the same narrative. Read, read, read. You have to read what are your requirements calling for, what are your requirements asking for. Sometimes when I do proposals, they ask for, so let's talk about a more sophisticated construction proposal. They may ask me for a schedule. So I've got to include a schedule. They may ask me for the resumes of my employees. I got to put the resumes of the employees. They may ask for your capability statement. I got to put my capability statement in there. Some of them may ask for a price proposal within the technical for a seed project. So there's no one size fits all. This is just one example to help address some of the questions and concerns that people may have. But again, I think if we, on the high level, what we're talking about is, reading all the information, and then how do you turn around and put it on a piece of paper, a page, to give it back to them in a succinct manner so that they can clearly assess whether or not you can meet those requirements. And part of doing that is effectively saying, okay, restating what they're asking you to do on their particular write-up. So effectively, it doesn't matter how long, how big it is, restate exactly what they're asking you to do. And then from there, you want to answer the question. Okay, so after you restate that, then you want to go and answer the question. So let's take a look at some of our answers here and what we wrote. Hold on. All right, let's see. Is there a formula for determining the bidding price for products so one can avoid over and under bidding of particular items? Lori, that's a really good question. In fact, we will talk about that here. In terms of bidding products, there's GSA is your best friend for when it comes to pricing. So when it comes to numbers and pricing and stuff, I would say use GSA, because GSA will help you determine what is the price that people are paying, or people are charging the government for various items. That includes products. So for everyone out there who's always, and I do get this question a lot, Lori, so it's a great question. For everyone out here who's always like, Eric, how do you determine price? GSA is a great place to go to for how do you price a product or how do you price a service. And in fact, Maria and I, we use GSA just to do that. Let's talk about it real quick. So what we did was we actually used the GSA calc.usa.gov. I talked about this on another video, but we used this, right, in our write-up to help us with our write-up. So let me show you kind of how we did that. I think it's really cool. Let's talk about it here. So let's go in. Let's look at our write-up. The first thing that Maria and I had sat down and figured out, we had to figure out, which is, okay, hold on. I'm checking my screens. I can make this bigger for you guys. Okay, all right. So the first thing that we did is we sat down and we determined what are the team members that we need to address. So if you go back and you look at it here, it talks about the service project team, and it talks about different, where is it at? Boom, boom, boom. All right, so you're going to become the primary producer, editor, interviewer, transcriber of the individual podcast episodes. So how do we communicate that to the government? So we had to figure out what are the team members that we're going to need in order to use. And what's interesting about this, okay, that's what happened. It goes away on this other screen. So I'll keep this screen up for now, and I'll just talk to you. What's interesting about this, hold on, wait, I think I can do, boom. All right, let me lock this, open this. All right, good. So then you can see my face. All right, so what's interesting is when we were looking at here on the screen and we were looking at the requirements for the team members, the first thing that Maria and I had to do was figure out who's our team, right? What does our team look like? And what are the roles of the team members? And how does that figure out? And it was interesting because we didn't really know all the answers to those questions because, I mean, I record the episode. I do a lot of the technical requirements. Maria takes and she reviews the podcast. She takes and does the timestamps. She sends it off to our guy who does the actual editing. He comes back and review it. So a lot of times we're doing overlapping roles. But in this particular case, right, if you were going to actually do a production for someone, an organization, you have to have actual roles to do, right? And so part of our initial challenge was figuring out the roles and what we wanted to create. And that was part of our initial discussion was, all right, what are the roles of the people that we need in helping to do this podcast? Let me pull it up here. So Maria and I sat down and we said, all right, what are the things that we need and what are the roles we're going to have? I don't have a way of sharing this screen on here, but I can tell you we looked at the first thing that we said was, okay, we're going to need obviously a host, a production manager, and we didn't call it production manager at first. We talked about, okay, we need someone, and we literally looked at the requirements and said, all right, if you were to hire, and this is a good example for people because if you're going to hire a team to do something, what does that ideal team look like? One of the mistakes that I think a lot of small businesses make is they go, well, Eric, if I'm, let's say you are a 1 or 2 man organization. If you were to say, okay, Eric, but I'm going to do everything, but that's not what the government's looking for. They're looking to hire a team of people to do this, and you have to show them or demonstrate to them, right? Given ideal circumstances, you're not a 1 or 2 man person because that's ideal. You're 1 or 2 man person because you don't have money or contracts. But if you had money or you had contracts, then you might be a 10 person organization or a 20 person organization, and that's what they're looking for. And the same thing when I bid construction contracts, we literally take and we will go and we'll partner with another organization. We'll say, this is what we're going to do. This is what this person's going to do. And we put together the skill set of the team, and that's what we present it as. And so in the same regard, what we're doing is we're putting together what would our team look like if in this particular case. So we were just going over different roles of things that we did, and to figure out, right, like who were those roles is we literally went over here and we went to calc.usa.gov and we started typing in the different roles. So we went here and we typed in and I think I've shown this before, but oops, I'll show it again. So we typed in audio engineer. All right. And then when we typed in audio engineer, we came down, we found audio engineer, and we pull up people's write-ups, and we say, all right, what does an audio engineer do? We come in here, audio engineer. All right, audio engineer manages and controls sound systems at message makers, on-site presentations, maintenance upkeep. He's got a BA, this and that. Okay, creative director does da-da-da-da. And that's what we started using to help us be able to answer some of these questions about different roles that we needed. Is that we would come here to calc.usa.gov, type in different types of positions, and let's go in. Let me go back to our page here. Let's look at what we have. Production manager, right? So we got production manager. So you go in, production manager, video production manager, media production manager. We go in and we look at the different roles, right? And then we type in, all right, production manager, responsibility, manage the production of, this one's bibliographic records, includes supervision of employee, quality control, submission. All right, I don't like that one. Let's look at another one. Let's see if anybody else does any type of, here, RFL communications. And we literally just went back and we did this process until we arrived at the different roles and responsibilities of the people. And then a lot of that, what it did was it helped us actually talk about what it was that the roles were, and you don't see it here because this is a summary overview, but we wrote it up and it helped us to arrive at our pricing. So we took and said, all right, if you were, and again, because we do podcasting, we know how much time it takes to do things. So we looked at the different roles, we looked at the amount of time it takes to do each role, and we assigned a value to that. And based on the rates of pay that we got from calc.usa.gov, based on the responsibilities that we determine on the actual activities that we do, we were able to come up with a quantifiable number for minutes and hours, and we were applied that across however many episodes, and that's how we started. That's how we were able to come up with the actual numbers. Now let's look at on the actual technical write-up. Let's talk about how do we address those questions. So that's how we wrote about a list of team members on here. We obviously talked about now. And one of the things that I like to do is, since the government says here, this is U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, we're going to do storytelling. One of the things that I wanted to do was kind of give them already a taste that I had done my own research. And I didn't want to just say, this is me, I'm Eric. Well, we did it for Maria. So Maria is actually the one who submitted it. We didn't want to say, hey, this is Maria, this is what I do. We wanted to discuss or address the issues that they had on here. And since one of the issues was where is it at? Okay. All right, down here. So one of the issues was the Fish 150, and then the other one was stories that demonstrate organizations' prospective employees. That was another issue. And so when we come in here, we talked about our team is aware. This is kind of like my project organization. And a lot of times what I like to do is go back and I reference U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, our communication plan, what we plan to deliver, how is it part of effective storytelling. So I went and looked at, right, what does it take to tell effective story? Because they asked here was telling effective stories. So I want to go in and look up what does it mean to tell effective story. So getting story begins with effective content producer. This person will research in the most effective way of telling stories, celebrate the fisheries, Alaska services role, and shared stewardship of wild resources for the Fish 150. Effective content producer does blah, 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 blah. And this is what that person does. These are the team members that assist them. And that's just in my organization. Now let's go into the technical aspects of it. Demonstrate ability and experience at working audio, producing podcasts, So one of the things that I did differently when Maria gave this to me was what Maria talked about was the actual podcast. And what I like to do in demonstrating, and again, let's go here. We're answering this particular question. Are there any questions? Hold on, before I do, let me just see if there's any questions real quick. It's quiet? All right, good. Okay, we're good. I guess everybody's learning now, right? So everybody's learning. All right, let's go back. So here, skill and experience in developing creative communications plan, marketing communications. And by the way, listen, I'm not the best at everything. I forgot. I skipped number 1. Demonstrate ability and experience working with audio, producing podcasts, including bring your own equipment to the project. One of the things that I did differently when I got this from Maria was she did not talk about, for example, the amount of podcasts that we've done, the amount of downloads we've had. She didn't talk about the numbers. She also didn't talk about the type of equipment that we use on here. She didn't talk about the software that we use to do it. And so those are areas where I took her basic type of proposal and I expanded upon these ideas. She had talked about, obviously, she's a producer behind GovCon Giants podcast, but she didn't expand on who was a GovCon Giants podcast and what that meant. And so I expanded on that. We've got more than 12,000 subscribers with nearly 1 million views. And so I also want to talk about how did MJ Global, because now we're not saying Maria. We're talking about MJ Global. Her organization is MJ Global. So it's not Maria did this. It's when MJ Global did. So I call it MJG. So MJG developed a long-term strategy, and I talk about how me as a host had the same concerns that U.S. Fish and Wildlife has, whereas I'm here, this guy on YouTube, and I want to create a podcast, and I don't know how to, so I want to turn to someone who did know, and that's where I reached out to MJ Global to help me in launching my podcast, and then this is kind of the story of what they did. You see how you position that? And I think positioning is really important. And so I even went a step further, right? And look at this. And by the way, I haven't read this. Unlike U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the host had no background knowledge other than just using podcast medium for reaching out in different audience. So now I'm kind of like plugging them, saying, hey, you guys are smart. You understand what you want to do. You understand the strategy. I didn't even know any of that stuff. And then MJ Global came in and saved the day. Thank you, MJ Global. And so here we go in. MJG developed a long-term strategy and plan to create, develop, and build out a podcast platform for the social media star. From naming the logo design, we helped shape Mr. Coffee's podcast from onset and inception to execution delivery. We helped derive the intro, outro heard on each and every episode and the exit content prior to his termination. So now we're saying MJ Global builds out this whole thing, and currently they support our podcast. And in order to do that, they're required to not only produce, develop, plan, and coordinate content for the podcast. Their team also performs market analysis to review what content resonates with audience, provides marketing communication support. Hey, you guys recognize any of this language in here? Okay. Distribution, promotion, market and research, target audience. You see how I'm actually giving back, and I'm saying here in a written format, I'm repeating the words that they want to hear. This is very important for the government. They may actually control F your stuff and just search for buzzwords and keywords that they're looking for and asking for. So I go and I give it back to them here in this written format. So we provide marketing communication support for GovCon Giants on all mediums. The podcast can be heard on Stitcher, Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and various other platforms. Now we could talk about GovCon Giants podcast aimed at helping small business owners struggling in government contracting soar to new heights and achieve their dreams. Our mission to deliver weekly relevant content for government officials, national award winners, And we go into the actual what the podcast is about. And then we go and talk about since its production. We've released 65 episodes, 25,000 downloads. We're currently releasing one episode a week. I helped create the cover art and register the art and title on Libsyn. She also did the registration for Apple, Google, and I'm sorry if I'm talking fast. But I want to kind of show you this. And then it talks about the process. They record the interviews via Zoom where the files are downloaded, edited, time marks sent to editors for completion. At the launch, we had the website in place. It contains the show notes and pictures of the guests. So again, we are going back and we are addressing the thing you're talking about. Develop episode schedules and focus, including building in time for potential topic-specific research. I'm hitting all of the things that they're asking me for. Again, I'm answering this one question, but I'm addressing all of these things, right? Work with a service project team. Existing communications plans. Develop strategies that do the following items. Develop episode schedules. Build in a time frame for potential research. Primary producer, the editor, the interviewer, the transcriber. Okay, we're producing 50 episodes. Well, she's done 65 episodes. And so it says, like, everything that they're asking me to do, I make sure that I hit on it somewhere in my write-up. And that way, they're going to go check, 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 right? I've demonstrated that ability. I'm now an expert, or I'm experienced. I have recent and relevant experience in this particular activities. So now let's go in. Skills and experience in facilitating, developing, creating communication plans. I went ahead and we listed out all the equipment that we use, because here it talks about bringing your own equipment, recording and editing to the project. So we talked about here's some of the equipment that we use, so that way they can see what we're using. Moving on, number 2, skill and experience facilitating, developing communication plans, marketing, and content production. Number 2, again, how do we make this happen? For communications planning, MJG uses a combination of Calendly, Outlook, Zoom, event scheduling used by Calendly allows everyone to easily coordinate persons with difficult schedules. Why? Because here we're going to have to do what? On this part, number 2 podcast, we have to The stories, we're going to basically showcase the heart commitment. We're going to do employee profile series. So that means we're going to have to coordinate the schedules of people who are out here working. They're doing field work in unpopulated regions, and we're going to have to tell their stories. So what is MJ Global Solution? The solution is we're using Calendly. It allows everyone to easily coordinate persons with difficult schedules, meeting confirmations using Outlook connected with Zoom, link invites, and helps remind guests of event schedules. After each episode is recorded, we begin post-production, editing, and preparation for media distribution. See job function, roles, and responsibilities of each team member in Exhibit A. Boom. Where do you think that I got the job members' roles and responsibilities from? I'll give you a hint. Ooh, why did they pull up this other website here? Oh, here it is. Boom. That's where I got it from, right? So all of my roles, responsibilities that are in Exhibit A, that's where I got it from, was from calc.usa.gov, where the person already had it listed. All right. Prior to launch of any new episode, the graphics designer creates thumbnails in multiple sizes, formats for marketing distribution. We also can include Snapchat and TikTok if the client would like to pursue. We talk about the different social media platforms that we want to put it on. Why? Because here they talk about sharing out to audiences, distribution, and social media. Here they talk about platforms like SoundCloud with other partners or public radio. And again, we address that up here. Some other technical tools that we use for marketing include GetResponse, Google Meet, Bonjour, Anchor, Facebook groups, IG pages. And that's how we address this particular issue of experience in facilitating and developing creative communications, planning, marketing, communications, products, and content productions. Any questions? I feel like I'm doing a teaching webinar. I feel like I'm doing a teaching webinar. Questions. Yes, sir. A little copy and paste. A lot of copy and paste. Not a little bit, a lot. All right. So now, right, this is kind of where I got stuck at. And this is actually was one of my challenge areas. So my challenge area is experience in incorporating distinct Alaskan and Alaska Native perspective into communications products. How do we do that, right? Like, how do we, let's go back. How do we incorporate, right, distinct Alaska and Alaska Native perspective into our communications products? How do we do that? Anybody guess? Like, I mean, let me tell you, I'm pretty good at this stuff, and I was perplexed. I was like, dang, how am I going to do this? So I'm here at my Mountain Dew, Snickers, and my Little Wayne. You know, if anyone knows, that's my format for success and writing proposals. And I'm like, all right, how am I going to incorporate working with, like, distinct Alaska, right? Distinct Alaska and Alaska Native perspective into our communications projects. So, fortunately for us, we had one little advantage, right? Anybody know what that advantage was? Anybody have any idea what that advantage was that we had? Remember, the issue is experience and incorporating distinct. Colin, you should be able to figure this one out. Colin's my guy. He's pretty smart. Pierce, can you figure it out? How do we incorporate distinct Alaskan and Alaska Native perspective into our communications products? Ronald said, ask Chamber of Commerce for resumes. No. Queen of Zion says, how long were we given? And how much time would it take? Maria, how long did it take you to do this? It usually takes me. All right, Tam says teaming. Colin, Eric, didn't you have an Alaskan contact? Okay, Colin, You're pretty good. I knew Colin's a smart guy. I knew Colin would know. So what we did was, yes, we did have Alaskan contact that we worked with, but this talked about incorporating it into perspective and communications products. All right. So what we did was, one of the things I realized, and then going back to what Colin said, was yes, we had actually did a podcast episode with Alaska Native corporations before. And so we had already taken this Alaska Native Corporations podcast, and we had already done snippets, and we had done posts, and we had done IG, YouTube, LinkedIn with this particular episode where we had already chronicled the story of Alaska Native Corporation. And doing one of our podcasts, that was Sonia Mundra. And so it says here, the GovCon Giants podcast that we produce has highlighted and featured multiple Alaska Native corporations and tribal corporations as guests on its podcast. Episode number 55, Doing Business as an Alaska Native Corporation with Sonia Mundra, president of Shaniga Atlantic Business Solutions, who is leading the charge with this newly formed IT company. During the interview, she talks about the direction of the organization and the benefits of working as an ANC. In fact, on our IG page, YouTube channel, LinkedIn profile, we've chronicled Shaniga Atlantic on multiple occasions on both long-form and short-form content. I put a reference on here. And then I give other examples where we've included Mark Masters. He's Firefighter Turner Inc. 5,000 award winner, tribal citizen of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. He discussed his varied experiences. Episode 37, Andy Wells, Wells Technology. He was also a tribal of the Red Lake Ojibwa tribe. And then Rick Grams, too, is the Vice President, General Manager of Miami Technology Solution, owned by federally recognized Miami Tribe of Oklahoma. So yes, Colin, you were right. Good job. So that's how we were able to really address this particular area where we include Alaska Native perspective and communications products. So it was great that we were able to successfully put it all together and submit, and they received it, and we'll see what happens. But I thought it was a great example to show on today's, how to write a proposal, particular show and episode, and kind of give examples of, what we did from something that was just submitted like maybe, I don't know, a week ago or two. Now, Maria, what the question is? What somebody asked me about. Yeah, this is just a technical piece. It doesn't include numbers because we submitted a separate pricing volume. We talked about that early on. There's a price volume, and then there's a technical volume. Remember, we're talking about proposal writing, not actually bidding the job. So we really want to focus on the actual proposal. Now, let's go in. Someone said, how long did it take me to do it? I write this stuff up. I think it's unfair for me to state how long it takes me to do it because a lot of people who hear what I say are going to use it as a measuring stick to measure against. So I think that's really unfair. I think like anything else, with time, experience in doing it, like Colin suggested, definitely helps to get faster at it, to be better. The other thing is that I have a lot of I have a lot of templates and examples that I pull from, and for me, I'm able to pull from my templates, examples, formatting, and that's why, like a lot of the formatting stuff, I've already have in place. How to, setting up in terms of project organization, introduction, a lot of that stuff I already have in place. The formatting of it, so it's really more of regurgitating back the client's needs, making sure we communicate that, making sure we understand we're on the same page. And the reason why we repeat it back is because then that way when the client reads it, we're demonstrating that we have knowledge of what they're asking for. And that's where that helps out. But I do this in one. I think I took it. I don't know. It took me probably 3 hours to do it. So, but again, that's not. I've had very complicated ones that have taken me 2 weeks. But in terms of hours, probably maybe 20 hours, 22 hours to do some of them. but not in one setting. I'll sit down for 4 hours, crank, just work, come back, look at it, because I have to send it out to other people to look at, and then for consideration, and then I move on to other sections. But really, at this point, for me, it's more assembling it, and my brain thinks in this manner, so it really comes natural. Someone says you work with Alaskan Native Corporation. Yes, but the Alaskan Native Corporation that I work with, that was for construction. It wasn't related to a podcast, so I didn't use that corporation. They were CCI Native. Colin says, Eric, wouldn't that count as work experience, a podcast interview? The podcast interview, yeah, absolutely. No, they're asking for a podcast, and we did a podcast interview with the Alaskan Native Corporation. So it's exactly what they're asking for, and it's exactly what we gave them. Lavelle says, I think you may have used the info that you received from your Alaskan contact and worded it in your own. No, my Alaskan contact what information would I use from them? Remember, the government wants to see that we're producing a podcast. So the information from the Alaskan Native Corporation has nothing to do with us producing a podcast. They want to show that we were able to capture the story of an Alaskan Native corporation and then share that story with people in a podcast format, which is exactly what we did. Sonia doesn't even know that we submitted her name in the hat because it has nothing to do with her more than it does capturing the story of Alaskan Native experience. Technology, infrastructure, services, digital innovation. Okay, that's Violet asking what he's doing. Remember, proposals aren't a one-size-fits-all. It's based on how your business can deliver the need. I agree completely, Colin. Yeah, don't compare yourself to what I've done. Definitely not a fair thing. Queen Design, that makes sense. Just like I piggyback info from my business plans, which is template already. Yeah, if you can do it. Are there screen printing jobs worth much? I think you're in the wrong place, Glorious Connect. We have videos on how to determine what the government buys. Listen, definitely, I'm going to go. It's been just past an hour. I want to stick around the hour mark. Hope this helps some people out there. The cost, so if you are not already a member, you're going to be in trouble. So definitely, if you want this information, and also, by the way, just kind of pull this up on screen, you still have until August the 28th to join, to become a member of GovCon Giants community. At that point, we will go to a subscription-based model. So, hey guys, hope this helped a lot of people out there. Take care, and we'll see you next time.